Yeah, again, good lead up into the last question. So can you all just explain why USA manufacturing is so important to you? And then specifically, how significant is sourcing the raw materials from this country?
I'll go first. It's important for me, microgains, like our fractional plates are made 10 minutes from my house in central Pennsylvania. So like I'm able to drive up there and talk to them. I can see them get made. We can make adjustments right there. There's no language barrier. There's no me traveling overseas to check them out. There's no sitting in a shipping container in the Pacific right now. We're able to get everything done all at once. And yeah, it does cost a little bit more, but like there's a customer service aspect to it and a service aspect and a quality aspect to it that is constantly overlooked whenever you compare all of our products to, overseas made products. Not only is our plates made here, and then it is shipped over to a place that steam treats and tumbles them 25 minutes away, and then it's shipped to a company 30 minutes away from that coats it, then it's shipped back to me. And then obviously we package it up in a box that is made 40 minutes from here. So like I affect, I don't know, it's like 6 or 7 small businesses in like a 40-mile radius from my house in Pennsylvania to make the majority of our products. Like the wood, we make a wooden deadlift jack, and that's Pennsylvania hardwood. Like my father-in-law Paul Bunyan's trees down, and then we can cut out those jack stands, 100% PA hardwood. And then like our steel plates are made in Lancaster, and they're shipped up. So that's in Pennsylvania as well. So the ability to like email somebody, they get back to you right away, being able to drive anywhere and check out the product and support so many local businesses is a huge deal for us at Microgains. Like we haven't wavered on anything made overseas because it's I don't know, I like the quality. It's better. You can talk to people, and I think that's super important. I'm sure obviously some of you guys agree with that.
Oh, 1000%.
I'm not going to say for all fitness products it's important to manufacture in the United States. For certain things there's cost prohibitive barriers where you cannot feasibly make and sell something in the United States. So for some people who are just starting to create an accessory who don't have their own manufacturing facility, sometimes it makes sense to be able to get the margin in it that making it overseas and selling it, because Mark Zuckerberg's going to charge you $30 or $40 to acquire customers. So you're going to have margin in it to where you make more than Mark to run a sustainable business. But for companies like us, we're a little different. We're manufacturers, right? So our company is a manufacturing facility primarily. We just sell fitness equipment. So everything that we make is primarily made here in the United States, and I prioritize local and then state and then U.S. Components for whatever we're making. And if it's not available in the United States, then sometimes you have to buy parts from China to produce here. There's for some materials there's no way around it. For us, it's great because we're able to scale fast. Where some companies that specialize in overseas importation, their product development process is years. Sometimes it takes them a year to release a new product because you got the idea, you got the conceptualization, you got the Google Translate and the language barrier, you got the trying to understand what their emails say, and then the back and forth shipments of prototypes. If somebody comes to me with a problem and it's made out of foam, I can have a sample done by the end of the afternoon. So I'm able to acquire collaborations and work with inventors really quickly and move products to market faster than most other companies are, because I'm sitting in a building where we got 60,000 square feet of manufacturing facility and machinery to do just about anything that we want to do out of foam, and we've got metal capabilities and woodworking capabilities now, and we're growing. And my goal is to be able to keep working with people like yourselves who want to work with us, collaborate with the platform in which we're building, to continue expanding upon our capabilities. I think for us it's a pinnacle part of what we do, and it doesn't make sense to make foam on the other side of the country, on the other side of the world, and then ship it here. A lot of it gets mold and mildew in it. You open up a bench from some company that imports from overseas and uses cargo ships, you're going to find mold in the foam because it's been sitting in salt water for so long. But a lot of people don't recognize that because they put it into a little piece of plastic and then heat seal it, and it doesn't make for a great quality product. But
we worked together, and Dylan, and we were able to make something that shipped from the UK. I was able to make something in like a week. Here, there was no shipping overseas. We got the aluminum piece, the steel piece in, made it, and sent it back to them. They critiqued it, we adjusted it, and then we had it on the market fast, comparatively. So that's a great point.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. Dylan, you mentioned there are certain things that it's just not feasible. Do you see that changing? Like, have you seen certain things changing at all to where with politics and such, all of the struggle shipping overseas these days, like is something like that going to be possible in the future based off your prediction? Like if you had to guess, Patrick mentioned earlier the Scout Hyper made overseas. I know nobody wants to copy a specific product, but is that like an example of a product that you could see with things changing, more emphasis on being made in America? Am I making sense?
Yeah,
like, could the price come down?
Quality and quality control has always been incredible, but right now, in terms of a global perspective, America's a laggard in manufacturing. We've moved from the manufacturing industry over the last, the Industrial Revolution, and now we're the leader in information and technology, which is far more valuable than manufacturing. So we've relied upon non-capitalistic countries to be able to develop our products for us, because manufacturers are a dime a dozen and labor is everywhere, and cheap. So we've been able to make components and raw materials in China for the past, 50 years to support the growth of the American economy while we progress into other sectors. I believe
I give a real world model of this right now. I mean, if anybody knows our pulley system, the bearing comes from China. You will not find a USA made bearing that is feasible to scale.
And if you do, it's going to be $10, $20, $30, $40 a bearing.
I'd be out of business. But yeah, the pulleys are made in America. So there's thermoplastic. It's molded around a Chinese bearing. And there's no getting around that.
So for right now, somebody just entering the market, the cost and barriers to entry by overseas manufacturing are nothing. You just buy your parts. There's nothing to it. They do the design work. They go through everything and they make it. If you wanted to find somebody in the United States, Mike's lucky because whoever he's got doing his tumbling and coating has capabilities of doing all of that. To recreate the quality of the Cleverbuilt jack, you're going to need to find a coating facility that has a lot of different capabilities. And a lot of the manufacturing facilities that still exist in the United States are so segmented off of doing very specific things that they don't have capabilities to do it all in one shop. Where in China, it's very accessible. And it's becoming less accessible, especially now with the cost of containers being shipped to the United States. But when it's not China, it's going to be Hungary. It's going to be India. India is probably going to be the next place where people go to start manufacturing overseas. And then the next stop after that, it's going to be Africa. You're going to start seeing everything made in Africa within the next 20, 30 years from now. And it'll probably be the last non-capitalistic stronghold that exists for overseas manufacturing. I'll probably contrast Mike's story as well. It's been my experience that it takes a lot of time to get quotes back from people, even when I have, fully engineered drawings. I'm on my third steel cutter, my fifth powder coater. I've had 4 different engineers that I've worked with, and we've been in business for a year. And it's just been tough landing on that right individual here in the States because, like I said, it's the attention to detail. Now, that's not to say that I couldn't end up in Patrick's situation, order a bunch of stuff from China, and it's all wrong too. But it's been my experience that I reached out to dudes in China, and they got me a price back in a day. I'm waiting on numbers for 2 weeks from some people here, and I don't know it's because they're so busy or. I'm not ordering little. I mean, these are on $30,000 and $40,000 orders. These aren't like, little, hey, let me get 5 of these. So it's still a significant amount, but it's still important to, manufacture here for a whole magnitude of reasons that these guys already mentioned. But I want to create jobs. I want to pass on a trade. My father's been an aircraft manufacturer for 45 years. I walked a picket line when I was 4 years old. And he told me to go to college and be an engineer, and I didn't listen to him. So I ended up joining the Army right after 9/11, getting out and finishing my degree and wearing a tie to work and doing what they told me to. And it sucked. I like building shit. And I think other people should take pride in building the stuff that they see in their head. And they ought to take more investment in themselves. And when you think that you got something, run with it, jump all in, go for it. Steve, it took you a long time, right? Patrick? You got lucky right out of college, started drawing stuff and going for it. But I don't think enough people invest in themselves and their ideas. I'm almost 40 years old jumping into this. I learned how to weld in the last years. It turns out I'm a pretty damn good welder. I probably should have gone to trade school instead of going straight into college. And I want to encourage more people to do that and show them that this is a fine trade to be in. I still got a hot, smart wife at home and a nice house and beautiful children. I'm not some laggard or degenerate, even though my mom thinks so because I got hand tattoos and stuff. But what I'm trying to say is, this whole micro movement, let's put the wealth back into the working class. I think I want our company to be a part of that, and we want to hire veterans, and we want to hire people that want to learn these trades, and we want to push American manufacturing
to the place where it used to be.
My biggest frustration is what's something that you, Jason, brought up with like spending money on with American companies lately. Ever since COVID, I kind of noticed it, or a little bit after, is I'll call someplace like wanting to spend money, and I'll email them 3 or 4 times, call them 3 or 4 times, and it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, tell me if you want a business, yes or no, so I can stop chasing you. And like I've learned just from working with this other company in the automotive industry, there's some really impressive stuff he has made overseas. And the reason he chooses so purely is for that reason. And a lot of times I find in America, it can be hard to find people that are like as gung-ho. But I've seen some of the stuff he's had made, and he'll have an intricate bracket for like a supercharger about this big. And he's like, this was made in America, and it took 16 weeks, and it was $900, and it looked good. It was anodized, and it had like, you could see the machine marks on it. But then he shows me this other one, and he's like, this, I sent the file to my manufacturer in China. It showed up 3 days later, and it was like $180, and it literally looked like there was not one flaw in it. It looked casted because there's no machine marks. And like, that's where it's tough. And what's the appeal for a lot of people going overseas is like, you can get just as good, if not better quality. And I think that's where a lot of people get or like China gets a bad name because they say, oh, it's Chinese made, it's cheap, which just like anywhere, there's cheap stuff in America. But I from what I've seen, there's some good stuff that can actually come out of that space. But, you know, like it
for the customer, our customers too.
Yeah. And that obviously helps with, you know, customer costs, like cost of the customer and like your margins and all that. But in regards to like the American made stuff, like most of our suppliers are in Arizona. And like Mike was saying, it's nice to just walk in there and see stuff. Because there's times I'm like, hey, I want to go look at this before you hit 500 print, you know? And a lot of times I go, I'm like, okay, we need to change this little thing beforehand. And that's a lot more convenient than saying like, hey, ship me something in a month. I'll look at it and then I'll ship it back and all that. So I find it a very gray area.
Mm.
There's a lot of like complacency in manufacturing in the United States. Like I was telling you about the plates that spilled over. We actually just cut ties with that coder because, believe it or not, I got another shipment and then they wanted to raise their price like 140%. They send this thing out that says prices are going up 10%, COVID, labor, you know, cost of materials. And then they actually said, well, we haven't been charging you enough. You know, we've been losing money on some of these jobs we've been coding for you. So, you know, it's going to go up by this amount. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I've given you guys tens of thousands of dollars. Like Jason was saying, here's 50 grand. And they're like, no, thanks. We don't want it. It's mind boggling. How many manufacturers I've been through to code just to make the plates. I've been through a couple that when I was like, hey, this company's going to do it like slightly cheaper. Do you guys want to match it? I'll just stay here. Just match it. And they're like, nah, we don't want to. And they miss out on maybe a couple $100,000 in sales. It's shocking. And they're like the emails, like, can you get back to me? I don't know. I don't know if I'm crazy about emails. I like to get back to customers really quick because I feel like sometimes in minutes, sometimes in a couple hours, but never more than 24 hours. But when you don't hear back for weeks for quotes in America, it seems crazy. I don't know if they're I just think there's a high level of complacency, like it's kind of run very old school. And that does make people go to China.
How many people in Cincinnati have 2 blazers, 3D 2 blazers?
In Cincinnati, I think 0.
In greater Cincinnati, like in your general area, 50-mile radius.
Maybe 1.
Yeah. You know how many Rogons?
Like 16 or something insane like that. And you know, so that and that's the thing, you know, I was gonna say, you know, I'm hearing these, you know, when you're talking about like the complacency, yeah, that is a huge thing that I did realize. Like I even to this day, and I'm sure you guys have the same thing, I get emails like on a weekly basis from some of the same people in China. They're just on top of it. They're hungry for it. They want to serve. And I wish that there was some of that in America. Like even with our machining partner that we work with, we're constantly butting heads. They do phenomenal machine work. They have their primary customer is GE Aviation because they're right across the street from GE, and they have probably a 80,000, 100,000 square foot shops that's full of the most badass Haas machines, and they do our machining work for us. And but there are a lot of times where I'm just constantly having to like, dude, Terry, like, I need you to call me back. Hey man, like just staying on top of these dudes. And frankly, like I really don't have time for that. I wish there was more of an urgency with that. And also at the same time, I'm very lucky to be geographically where I'm at. And I've also had vendor relationships that, you know, were 5+ years old now going into COVID that, you know, it's no secret. I'm an hour from Rogue, and we share a lot of the same people for a lot of the same stuff. And they have huge manufacturing capabilities that they help us out with. And a lot of these vendors and manufacturers, they're on it. They're just absolutely crushing it. And I think, you know, we're lucky to have that. I always say, like, I'm lucky to be in Cincinnati because I've learned so much from some of these people that have worked with Rogue from the beginning, that they say, oh no, Pat, you can't do that. We learned that mistake a long time ago. Do it like this. And I'm like, whoa, I'm about to save a ton of money. This is about to be way faster, and we're about to offer a better product. So it's a win-win-win. But there are some of those pains and annoyances. But again, you know, what you were saying, Jason, you know, there is a huge sense of pride, you know, like sometimes we'll walking out in our shop and knowing like, oh man, like Dean, our welder, you know, he just bought himself a new Tahoe and he's able to do this. He's able to feed his kids. Like he has 3 kids, you know, and he's able to take care of, and, you know, his, you know, things that he wants to do in his life and go do cool things because of the, you know, the opportunity that's being created here. So that's very, very, very huge. And, you know, I'm huge in supporting like our local economy here, like the restaurants, coffee shops, businesses, all sorts of things like that. And constant outsourcing, you know, takes away from that. You know, the other thing too is almost like on the human rights sort of thing, like we have very high standards for how we do everything. And unfortunately, like over there, they don't, you know, like I've seen pictures and videos of manufacturing and guys are wearing like thong sandals, you know, next to heavy machinery and stuff. And I'm like, bro, this dude's about to lose his foot, or, you know, something crazy is about to happen. But they don't have anybody like monitoring that kind of stuff. And the amount of pollution that's created over there is just absolutely insane. Like there's no EPA, and most people don't know this, but 1/3 of the pollution that's on the West Coast, like in California, comes from overseas in China. Like they can, I think the last time I read, they can trace about 29% of the particulate in the air from overseas. So it's like whatever they're doing over there is not only just them, it's affecting our country too. You know, there's other factors, but it's definitely like there's good sides and there's bad sides. But you know, for me, like the good in terms of, you know, the jobs and creating what we're creating here outweighs, you know, that's probably my favorite part of it.
I was gonna say the pollution thing you brought up. I recall them showing like a satellite map of China area or the world right after COVID, when there was all the shutdowns and manufacturing had to stop, and they did like a before and after. And I think you could see even from a satellite image, there was like, it looked like 2 different places. Wow. It was just all the pollution, and then because the factories weren't running for however long, it was just all clear.
Then again, there's any container you put it into. Not having worldwide, you know, standards of what we do to our air and our water is like having a P section in the pool. Eventually, it's going to
yeah. I love that. That's funny, Dylan. No, that's true though. That's very true. You know, being able to go face to face with some of these, you know, manufacturers, and you know, we've had parts that have been jacked up, and I've shown up personally, and they're like, "Hey, you know," they shake my hand, "We'll handle it right now," and that also is extremely valuable. So, you know, it's kind of hard to say like, hey, this is messed up over email, because I've done that. And then the response was, you know, and yeah, there is sort of the language barrier, and the response was essentially, hey, our bad, your next order will be better. And I'm like, dude, there ain't gonna be a next order because I can't really do anything with what I got here. So that doesn't solve my problem. So, but you know, when it is that face-to-face handshake sort of relationship that, you know, I have with some of these people, or pretty much all of these people that I work with, it's a lot easier to provide the best possible product to the end consumer.
Awesome. I think that's a good way to wrap up. Does anybody else have anything to say on that subject or anything else?
I want to say thank you for putting these roundtables together. I think it's important to hear us, give us a platform to speak. Thank you.
Oh,
and thanks to each and every one of you fellas, like, for taking the time. Like, this is cool.
Mm-hmm. Jake, is that a Ab Amigo banner over your left shoulder?
Yeah. I saw that go back in the day.